This weekend, a special edition of The Dish. Francis Mallmann, the world's most famous proponent of open fire cooking. Open fires are the oldest cooking method in the world, but Mallmann has taken them to new levels. He has been honing his primal technique for 2 decades, following an early start in a far more refined setting, classic French kitchens. On this week's edition of The Dish, Francis Mallmann and fire. The work began just after 6 a.m. Francis Mallmann kept a close eye as 2 of his chefs prepped the day's feast.
There's so many details. It's such a fragile thing to cook with fires. People think it's a beastly thing, it's a manly thing, but it's not. It's extremely fragile.
First, the hanging of the ribeye, slathered in chimichurri sauce. Each suspended by wire, measured and cut to precision lengths to control for cooking time and temperature. A technique Mallmann created and has now mastered. That was followed by a dozen organic chickens. Both are staples of Mallmann's custom domes, which are now a global phenomenon. Next, an array of vegetables and fruits, including pineapples and cabbage. Wood is set around the perimeter of the dome and then lit.
Every day is different depending on the wind, on the heat of the wood. This morning, it was a sort of a blind date with this wood, which is great. Fuerte, 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 fuerte. Oh, I didn't know what sort of heat we would get from it, but it worked out well. The fire has been such an important thing for us, not only for cooking, for shelter, for warmth, that whoever sees a fire and sits by a fire, you just drop.
It's primal.
It's primal.
A whole lamb was set on an iron cross nearby. Then given time. Lamb is not something you often see at North American cookouts, and certainly not made this way.
Okay, and now I just flip it.
5 hours so far.
5 hours so far. And then on this side too, I'm going to add a bit of this delicious moistureness on it.
And that's a mixture of what?
Butter and herbs.
I get a sneak preview?
Yeah. Hold it from the very edge, okay. Still warm. I always like to pull the first piece with my hand. Is it nice? It's crunchy.
It's more than nice. Mallmann also headed inside the fire with a whole wild salmon.
You look at this beautiful thing. Look at it. And I'm going to lean it and make it sleep here. Because you want the fish to be cooked, but slightly tied to the bone still, so you have to pull a bit. We baste all the food every hour and so. Even the pineapples, we put it in this syrup of pineapple every hour so it's dripping, it's wet. Francis
Mallmann's goal at this and every fire, omit needless ingredients.
Which I think is the most difficult thing in cooking, If you have a fish that it's just cooked in the wood oven and you just put on it a little sea salt and olive oil, it has to be perfect. If you hit those things, it's the most delicious things you will ever eat.
Mallmann's embracing of that bare style has been a return to his roots in Patagonia.
I think that childhood is where we always go back. Sometimes, I'm sitting in a very difficult meeting and I'm anxious and I go back to childhood. I remember the rain, the snow, the wind, and I get cured immediately.
You remember the fires?
I remember the fires, yes, because we live with fires.
Mallmann now makes his fires for celebrity clients around the world, including David Beckham and Guy Ritchie, and Gwyneth Paltrow. He's been a legend in South America for half his life, but his 2009 book, 7 Fires, put him on the map in the United States.
I think that we achieved a lot in the books, but at the end, you have to start your fire, stand in front of it, put your meat, and understand what's happening. It's a craft cooking, and you have to do it. There's no way out.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. That's why, sometimes my chefs say, "Chef, I'm so bored of doing this steak. I've been doing it for 2 years. I can't stand it anymore." And I say, well, but what you're learning is not about the steak. You're learning about how to stand, how to move. And that's something that you can't learn in a book. And that's the beauty of cooking. You have to do it.
From that bedded salmon to the domed meat to crossed lamb, every part of the Mallmann presentation is dramatic.
Well, I must say I'm very honored to be here today.
Eventually, 8 hours after the fire started, dinner was served.
So we're going to serve first the chicken today.
String-hung chicken with cauliflower and a Crayola sauce. Salmon
Somebody else want some fish?
with cabbage and aioli. Lamb with sweet potatoes, butternut squash, onions, and gremolata.
I'll give you one of these guys.
Ribeye with smashed potatoes and a chimichurri sauce.
The fat is very good.
For dessert, burnt peaches and plums with pineapple, mascarpone, and amaretto. All along with plenty of wine.
When people look at your cooking, your life, everything, what do you want people to take from the Francis Mallmann story?
I think freedom. I think there's a lot of fear. I think the worst enemies we have are fear and routine, because they both freeze us. You know, when you're fearful, you're like that. And when you're in routine too, you can't get out of it. And I think that changes is the most important thing in life, to change.
To Francis!
Salud!
Francis!
Salud, salud.
Salud!
That looked like quite an experience.
It looked delicious.
Dana, did you
I didn't
lose
get
your
the invite.
invitation?
Right nearby. The good news is the dome is still up. So
But
I
it's
can't
Francis
promise you
coming
guys
back.
I can do it like Francis. Maybe so. Can't promise I'll do it like Francis.
It looked
But I'll
It
try.
was pretty,
Yeah.
pretty amazing. That fish especially.